Fair. I mean,
This is not what I,
Focus coming out of California.
this one
oh, it's like a beat dog coming back up here again.
is how he's removing it. I thought it was the drones.
That is the drone, isn't it?
That's right. I got this.
It doesn't say drone.
I the tiger play before I go out.
Yeah, it's, go back to this one.
So he is removing the full issue instead of, this one it says, share capital vehicles. The drone itself is 7,000.
We missed
So that's what, I guess that's why,
Okay. We missed that.
so can you see the, if you look here, he's got the 7,000 is for that piece, and then share capital vehicles is 10.
Okay, so then we just want to change that, okay.
So to, something's not, actually, something's not right about it. Wait before you change it, because he comes up with this dollar, but in this it says capital vehicles.
Is the whole thing for the drone?
Well, when you read this part, it makes it sound like this drone is $7,000 and then shared vehicles is
I think he's just trying to pull from two different budgets to fund the 17. I think that's what's happening.
Okay.
So I think you're correct on the 17 to the 88 being the total for the drone. He's just wanting to pull from two budgets.
Yeah, to me, this is also irresponsible to tell us how much vehicles are and then what to put in the vehicles.
Okay.
All right,
So then at this point, I think Commissioner Corn's going to amend, motion to amend the order of agenda. I'm going to motion to amend the consent agenda.
what are we amending the agenda for?
To pull this item out separately.
So the order of agenda is just the way it's laid out, and so this is where you're going to amend this item. So you're not in disagreement with the order of the agenda, because it's if you wanted to say, let me move airport. That's, so you're not going to make a change on that. But you are going to make a change on the consent agenda, which is to remove that item. The order is just the order of it. If you want, like sometimes someone comes and you want them to come first.
Find a new legislative.
But if we want to pull, I hear what you're saying, but if we want to pull an item out of the consent agenda and hear it separately, don't we still have to amend the order of agenda?
You're wanting to hear it separately or not?
Yeah. We were saying to hear it separately.
Okay. Then you could,
Scratch the itch, or you can sell it to.
you wouldn't still do it in that section because you have to first pull it out of the agenda and hear it separately and just put it below it because the order of the agenda doesn't change, can't change until you move to pull that item from the consent agenda. So you will not have pulled it from the consent agenda so that you could change the order. So the order is still the order that this is, and you're pulling it from the consent agenda to here as an individual item. But you don't actually have to even pull it out of the consent agenda. You can just vote not to put it from the consent agenda.
Right, we can do that.
Which way are you wanting to go? So I don't want to
I
start.
don't know, yeah, I
So
don't,
a clean way of doing it
I can't figure out a clean way to
A
change
clean-
the order.
A clean way to do it is just to allow his item to be heard within the consent agenda, and then to make a motion that removes the item from the consent agenda. So instead of, Bill, can we have you here for a question here?
So we
Instead
could
of-
just do this motion, but not change the.
Correct.
Okay, so we should confirm that.
So the issue here is there's something in the consent agenda that we want out of the consent agenda. So on one option, you could hear the consent agenda and argue with that item and then just not approve the consent agenda. Or the original request was to pull it on and have it a standalone item so that we could discuss it. So what is the best way? Because the order of the agenda is this. But when you come to consent agenda, would you just motion to pull it out of the consent agenda? What is the best way to do it?
That's what happens when you're late.
Agenda as stated, and then when you get to the identify, you move to approve the
Hang out with this old me.
All right, it is 9:07 and we are here for our regularly scheduled business meeting. At this time, we will have our invocation.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we come to you and ask for your blessing on this meeting today. Please give the commissioners wisdom for dealing with issues today and for decisions that will need to be made. We pray that you help the commissioners in their marriages, helping them to be strong spouses and lead their families well. Bless their families and help them to be strong parents. Give them good health and healing of anything that's out of alignment with your perfect will, Lord. Help their bodies to be healed and whole. I pray that all of us present here would have a deep longing for the Lord, and that the Lord's power and anointing would be upon us, that we would be mighty and bold in declaring your gospel. I pray for a special blessing too on other elected officials present, that you would be very present and that your hand of grace and peace would be upon them. Ephesians 3:16 through 19 says, I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all fullness in God. In Jesus' name, Amen.
Please follow in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item is a House Bill 180 discussion. It's a 5-minute presentation by Ann. One of the reasons we put this on our agenda was it addresses a need for our county and our commissioners to be understanding what the bill did and the time constraints and the automatic approval of cell towers if we're not on our job. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Ann with a 5-minute timer for her presentation. All right.
Hopefully I can do this in 5 minutes. My name's Ann Wilder Chamberlain, and I am a Bonner County resident. This legislative session, as we know, they passed Bill HB 180 to allow small wireless facilities to be placed on utility poles everywhere without oversight. The bill also reduces the amount of time allowed for local municipalities to approve or deny all wireless facilities in their applications. The bill states that, other than the reduction in approval time in subsection 1, nothing in this section limits the authority of a municipality over decisions regarding the placement, construction, and modification of a wireless telecommunication facility. What this means is that what's currently in your local ordinance will preempt most aspects of this bill. Bonner County's telecom ordinance is lacking in virtually all protections available by law. The only protection the Bonner ordinance contains is in Category C, where it states, "The zoning commission shall consider the public convenience and necessity of the communication tower and any adverse effects that the facility would have upon properties in the vicinity and may require such reasonable restrictions and conditions of development as to uphold the purpose and intent of this title and the comprehensive plan." Since the public convenience and any adverse effect the facility would have upon properties is not clearly defined, the wireless industry interprets this as having no meaning. We've seen this time and again. Likewise, reasonable restrictions and conditions is also not clearly defined. Bonner County Code says nothing about the need or lack thereof of small cell towers in light of the fact that Bonner County is scheduled for fiber optics to the premises in nearly all of its main highways and roadways. Without clear definition of need, the code offers no protection from HB 180's goal to call these wireless facilities utilities and thereby eliminate the current required hearings for telecommunications facilities. The code does not require an independent study to determine significant gap in wireless cell phone coverage, resulting in differing determinations thereof between affected residents' tests and those of the industry. The ordinance does not point out the difference between wired and wireless broadband, nor between telecommunications service referred to in HB 180, which is 5 bars on a cell phone outside, and internet, which is not protected by the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Without clear legal definitions, Bonner County is at the mercy of the wireless industry's interpretation of its telecommunications code. 3 years ago, Dalton Gardens hired 2 attorneys to write a protective ordinance that would hold up in a court of law. One of those attorneys was Norm Semenko, Idaho land attorney. The other was national wireless expert attorney Andrew Campanelli, who guaranteed the Dalton Gardens ordinance as part of his price. I have a second version, aside from the one that I brought on Thursday, of Priest River's ordinance with me with a minimum of recommended updates to compare to the version I submitted last Thursday. I also have a link to the Dalton Gardens ordinance and a copy of HB 180, which I gave you all on Thursday, that will affect Bonner County, highlighted if you still need one. The bill, which goes into effect on July 1, on July 1. Its stated purpose is to promote wireless connectivity in Idaho, since permitting delays, which means people objecting to the placement of wireless facilities in their residential neighborhoods, have hindered wireless broadband deployment in the state despite historic investments in broadband. What the bill overlooks is that the historic investments have been for wired broadband and that not all broadband is functionally equivalent. The wireless industry has stolen millions of taxpayer dollars designated for fiber optics already. Via semantics, they are trying to steal the rest. And I have a link, a reference to a case that points out that the FCC applied fraudulent accounting methods for 20 years, allowing $500 billion of illicit cross-subsidies from state wireline utilities to private wireless companies. And it's been ruled that we should be able to retrieve that money for fiber optics. I have emailed to the commissioners the highlighted copy of the final version of HB 180, noting the reduced time given to counties. The easiest way for the county to protect itself is by having the requirements for cell tower applications and placement be so specific that any clerk can look at the application and determine whether the application is complete. I can provide examples of what other cities have done, and I know that Ada County, there's a speaker here that's going to talk about what Ada County is doing. We'd like to see specifics, distances from residential property lines, such as a recommended 250-foot horizontal and 200-foot vertical offset to reduce questions. If local municipalities do not provide their own definitions of the highlighted sections of HB 180, they will override. So I would encourage you guys to consult with Mr. Andrew Campanelli and regarding adapting the Dalton Gardens ordinance on behalf of Bonner County. And meanwhile, at the minimum, create a stopgap amendment to Bonner County's ordinance to prevent cell towers of any size or any G from being placed in or near residential neighborhoods and zones in our county prior to the July 1st, 2025 deadline. I have a copy of all these things for you guys.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I know what we need to do is do an updated chat because we did a Wired Idaho prior to this. So we'll get an updated video so that we can educate the community and have it in a video form that allows for all of the other speakers. And then addressing it, because I think I also hear one of your requests is that Bonner County reviews an ordinance related to cell towers specific to what Dalton Gardens has done, right?
And that would be for long-term, that would be not the stopgap, but that would be for the, we need something now, and I think that was what Commissioner Domke said on Thursday. Let's get something going now, and then we will have time to get something comprehensive that will be as a long-term ordinance. And so that's why I put in, some samples of what we've written up for Priest River. Just these, sometimes just a few little words can protect a whole lot. And so that's why I brought you these examples as something to look at.
Okay, so do you want to, I want to allow people to ask you questions, but not extend the presentation so we can go on to the business section. So do people have questions of what Ann reported out? In the room? Not in the room. And then so we have someone online, Joan.
Is there going to be public comment on what Ann just presented?
Public comment at the end of the business meeting. You can comment on anything you'd like at that time.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So I was under the understanding that if something's on the agenda that the public gets to comment, but you're saying, I'm hearing you say that it's going to be at another meeting?
No, well, what we did with yours was a presentation is before the agenda itself.
Oh, okay.
So that we could get your presentation out. So
Okay.
we're not extending it, but I offered questions to what you presented.
Okay.
And I don't think you have questions.
No, I think that there are people that wanted to submit some additional information to you guys that are online. And so I guess they can email them to you. How would you like?
They can email or use the public comment time. We agreed to a 5-minute presentation
Right.
at this business meeting.
Okay,
So,
thank
but
you.
if Joan has information she wants to email, she can email. And to do an extended review of what this is, we can do it in that 45-minute block and make that video.
Okay, all right.
And also to clarify, per last Thursday's planning update meeting with the board, when we discussed this, we are in the process of scheduling a workshop with the board. It'll be a public workshop that the public can participate in for us to start deliberating toward figuring out what a short-term and a long-term solutions might be to the ordinance.
Okay, and just for my own, because I'm, sometimes technically challenged, the 45-minute thing that you're referring to and the workshop are on 2 separate days?
It could be like redoing the Wired Idaho that we did together.
Uh-huh.
We can redo that
The one that
chat.
we did in
Yeah.
last year in January.
Yeah, we can update your video if you want. And
Okay.
his workshop is specifically talking about the ordinance review for Bonner County.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that if we got your chat discussion in before, because the mayor of Dalton Gardens also came to that and gave an education to the county on what their particular ordinance was and why they were comfortable passing that ordinance.
Uh-huh.
And I think that would be beneficial to, I did email that video to both commissioners to look at.
Okay.
But given this, you guys have worked on it more since this bill passed.
Yes.
And so we can do an updated video. And then as you're going throughout the community sharing about cell towers, you have also a resource that you can
Yeah.
forward also to people.
Yes.
To get that, because that's part of what we're doing here is making sure people are aware of what happens. Because in large part, if we don't address this issue in the correct time frame, then it's an automatic acceptance of,
Right.
of the towers
Yeah,
themselves.
that's what it says in the bill.
Yeah. Okay.
So are you going to discuss when this 45, when we're going to do this today so that we can write it all on our calendars and?
Well, you have to tell me what Tuesday morning you're available.
Okay. I
You've
can
gotta
come
check
in
your-
early any Tuesday.
Okay, so I will say the date then.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. All right. Before we go to adopting the order of the agenda, I wanted to make a comment about, this week is a somber week for Bonner County. We lost a dear friend, Dan Rose, who was an advocate for all things conservative in our county, passed away yesterday. So it's with heavy hearts that some of us come to this meeting today, but also recognition that in response to his passing, the way in which Mrs. Rose reports it is very touching. It was that yesterday Dan took the hand of the Lord and is at peace. So I wanted to make sure I let the community know of that. So hopefully if you know Kathy, that you understand her situation, provide comfort during this time. So with that, we will move to adopting the order of the agenda. He's going to motion the consent. You're going to do the adopt because you don't have to change it.
Okay, so based on the information for us, I move to amend the order of agenda by placing,
You're not going to.
I didn't get the,
You're just adopting it, so just the motion as written. You don't have to change it. You don't have- Just read this one. You don't have to
I
change
was
it.
reading.
No, the original. We're not changing the order. Yeah.
We're not going to change.
You
we're just
don't
gonna-
change the order. He's going to do the change part.
Okay. Based on the information before us, I move to adopt the order of agenda as presented.
Seconded?
There's a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, discussion from the board?
None.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. We are moving to the consent agenda. Within the consent agenda, there is a sheriff item for $17,288. At this time, we'll entertain a motion from the board.
Based on the information before us, I move to amend the consent agenda by removing the sheriff's invoice for General Pacific in the amount of $17,288 and approving the remainder of the consent agenda as presented. And then I'll also request that the sheriff's item be brought back before the board as a standalone agenda item at a future meeting.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, deliberation by the board. Do we want to explain why we did that?
Yeah, I think, I will say, I made this motion because I believe there's enough complexity potentially to this particular item that it's worthy of having a discussion about it as its own agenda item instead of having it be on the consent agenda. So that in order to give it a proper amount of due diligence, we can have a full discussion about the item on its own is warranted, in my opinion.
I agree with that decision. The cost is pretty high, and we're coming up on budget times, and it wasn't an item that was actually put into this fiscal year's budget. And so I want to have more discussion on this, as well as what available options already exist within the county that are adjacent to what this particular request is.
I would also like us to entertain looking at policy on what goes on the consent agenda and what does not go on the consent agenda in the future.
Agreed.
Okay. Any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes?
Commissioner Corn?
Yes?
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item is Clerk Rosedale.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everybody. Before you, I have claims batch 31 totaling $499,032.97. The main big-ticket items on that is $200,000 almost to self-insured, and solid waste has a $50,000 contract. The rest are a bunch of smaller ones for your approval.
All right. Anybody have questions for the clerk before we make a motion?
I am just, sorry, I'm finding my highlighted items. I believe the clerk has already touched on those.
And while we're waiting, just to reiterate, if you ever have any questions on any of these, if you asked me earlier than the commissioner meeting, I'm much more able to dig into them and find out more information.
Clerk, I believe you just indicated one of the largest items was the self-insurance.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right. At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
Based on the information for us, I move to approve payment of the FY25 claims in batch number 31 totaling $499,032.07.
97, I believe.
97 cents.
97 cents.
There's a motion
Seconded.
and a second. Any comment from the public on this item? Seeing none, deliberation by the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Corn?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk.
Next item is Justice Services.
One item for you this morning. This is an MOU between Bonner County Justice Services and Lilybrook Family Justice Center. It's recommended that the board approve the memorandum of understanding between those two departments. This has been approved by legal. The purpose of this memorandum of understanding is to ensure mutual support between the parties for purposes of compliance with federal mandates of the Prison Rape Elimination Act, in which Bonner County Juvenile Detention Center must provide inmates who are victims of sexual abuse while incarcerated with access to victim advocates for emotional support.
Any questions for?
Yes, Director, just to clarify, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, this is an item that's come before us for our other facilities, but now we're extending that understanding with Lilybrook.
Correct. In case we do have an incident where someone is sexually abused, it's just an understanding that they will provide those supports for them that they're trained to do as the victim advocates.
So then we're creating consistency with our reporting and processes across
Correct.
all the facilities in the
Correct.
county that have.
Yep, and under PREA and one of the standards, it speaks specifically about providing that support in case there is an incident. And so this just makes it formalized, so because we do have our audit coming up at the end of June. So it just keeps everything formalized and in order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any further questions?
No.
All right, we'll entertain a motion at this time.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between Justice Services and Lilybrook Family Justice Center. This MOU sets forth the conditions under which the Lilybrook Family Justice Center will provide advocates to juvenile detention residents who are victims of sexual abuse while incarcerated for emotional support in compliance with the federal mandates of the Prison Rape Elimination Act, known as PREA, and has been previously approved by legal.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, deliberation by the board. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Delphi,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Great, thank you, Commissioners.
All right, up next is our Parks and Waterways.
You got this. You're good.
Good morning, everybody. Matt Zoller, Parks and Waterways Director. We are looking to get a contract approved for Garfield Bay Campground. This is to run the campground, help collect fees, and provide services. Let us know anything that's wrong that we need to maintain. Garfield Bay is a fish and game site that Bonner County runs. So part of that is providing a good, clean service, a safe environment for everybody. So that's what makes this camp host important. Tom Huel has been with us for a long time and highly recommend him. And so, yeah, we're looking to get that approved.
The only comment I have is not specific to hiring him, but I think the job description needs to be updated. One of the things we struggled with at a prior camp host was saying you have to clean daily didn't have someone cleaning throughout the day. And so the way it's written, it doesn't give kind of very clear expectations. He's been doing a really good job at Garfield Bay, but the job description itself was exposed for weaknesses when we had issues with a prior camp host. And so I think we should update our job description. Any questions for him before we move to motion?
Director, is it correct that some of the fees collected help to offset the cost ultimately through the funding mechanism that we have in place?
So basically in this department, there's three sources of funding. You have groomers, which is user fees. You have boating, which is kind of what pays for everything on the lake, which is also user fees. And then there's the parks program itself. So part of that is going to be levy money, and then the other portion of that funding source is Garfield Bay Campground. So we're on auto renew every year with Fish and Game for that contract to essentially help maintain that location and give the residents of Bonner County a good place to go recreate, launch their boats. And it is at a very minimum cost to in comparison to other private and other public campgrounds and boat launches. So this is actually roughly the money that Tom will collect will be approximately like 15 to 20% of our entire budget in the parks. So it's important that we have somebody there to help get that money revenue source in.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
How many camp spots are there at this?
Off the top of my head, there are camp spots. Yeah, there's like
A bunch.
There's a bunch.
like 27 to like 35 or so.
Yeah, and they've been upgraded and all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, we
Very
did.
very different than the last time we were here for Bonner Park West. This is a full running
Right.
campground up there.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have the whole campground up on the hill, and then the road goes through, and then you have the whole boat launch below that everybody uses. Has a lot of good facilities for very cheap. Like I said, if you look at the pricing of the campground, we're probably some of the cheapest in the area, unless you're out boondocking or something. And yeah, we just got done doing like $400,000 in water upgrades in 2018, I think. They were continuously upgrading through a lot of grants, and yeah, important to take care of this so we can keep some extra money flowing in our parks budget.
I think that's similar to the other comments made when we were looking at Bonner West. I think we have to look and do the compare contrast of, is this a facility where we would be able to find someone that wanted a place to live and they did those services the way some other campgrounds work? I don't know that this fits it, but I know we should just have that question answered so we can justify that budget line to consider that. Because I think there are people that voiced the idea at our last meeting about some people actually travel just to be camp host, and then the exchange of what they're doing is that they stay rent-free at the location. So I think that it's an opportunity to look at this one as well, but not now. We need to move forward with this now, but to consider that when we're looking at your budget. Any
This
further?
one looks like it has actually a lot more work
Yeah.
entailed
Yep.
in it.
Yep.
Okay.
All
That's
right.
all I have.
All right, at this time, we'll entertain a motion.
Based on the information before us, I move that the county approve the 2025 Garfield Bay Campground Host Contract, naming Tom Hool as the campground host.
Seconded?
There's a motion and a second. Any comment from the public on this item? Seeing none, deliberation by the board. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes?
Commissioner Corn?
Yes.
Commissioner Delphine?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, noxious weeds.
Hey, good morning. For the record, I'm Chase Youngdahl, Bonner County Noxious Weeds Director. Commissioners, before you is the State Noxious Weeds Cost Share Acceptance Packet for the 2025 cycle. So the Idaho Legislature appropriates some funding as part of the Idaho State Department of Agriculture's budget for the purpose of assisting local jurisdictions with noxious weed mitigation efforts. And the Selkirk Cooperative Weed Management Area was awarded the full $15,336 applied for. The Selkirk CWMA is encompassed by Bonner and Boundary counties. And the lion's share of the projects here will go towards our landowner compliance assistance programs. The first one being the Early Detection Rapid Response Noxious Weeds Project, which those are species that infest a limited amount of ground countywide, and they fall under eradication objectives. And the second project being the Neighborhood Cooperative Program, where landowners can apply to have the cost of some of their herbicide reimbursed for the control of the noxious weed species with more of a widespread presence that fall more in line with maintenance objectives. And then we're also allotted a limited amount for education and outreach, which we use for Selkirk CWMA branded promotional items for distribution at county fairs and various educational events. There's a lot in your packet and there is some duplicity. Sorry about that. I just wanted you guys to have access to everything that the ISDA sent me. So I'll go ahead and turn it over at this point.
Thank you. Does the board have questions before we make a motion?
I don't have any.
Director, just to clarify or confirm if I'm correct, my understanding that the typical, where applicable, licensing, posting, all of the standards that would be associated with using chemical removal of noxious weeds would be complied with through these programs.
Yes, yes.
Anything further?
And I'll just add that the landowners who do it themselves through that, the Neighborhood Cooperative Project, they're just purchasing over-the-counter chemistries that anybody can, and they just, as long as they comply with label restrictions, that's on them. But as far as our component, all licenses and insurance issues are all taken care of. Yeah.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
Based on the information before us, I move to authorize the Bonner County Noxious Weeds Department to utilize state noxious weed cost share funds in 2025 through the Selkirk Cooperative Weed Management Area.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any comment from the public on this item? Seeing none, deliberation by the board. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Corn?
Yes.
Commissioner Delphine?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Dave Shook. He is online.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dave Shook, Airports Manager, for the record. Thank you for your time and consideration today. We have the opportunity to repair a section of pavement on the runway at Sandpoint Airport near the Bravo 4 taxiway to Omni Air Park. This work would be in conjunction with some repairs that they are making to that taxiway. And due to the proximity of that taxiway work, we will need to close the runway for 2 days, which will allow us time to do the work on the runway as well without additional closures. And we'll save the cost of additional mobilization if we can do this in conjunction with their work. The cost to the county will be $13,000, which is accounted for in the airport's budget. And this work is scheduled to be done mid-September. I recommend approving this pavement repair expenditure.
All right, does the board have questions for Dave before we move to a motion?
Director, just want to ask, was this previously identified work requiring repair and you were just looking for the right opportunity?
Yes, in our budget every year, we have a line item for pavement maintenance and pavement repair. And at Sandpoint Airport, we have about 27 acres of pavement in varying stages of repair and disrepair due to age. This particular section of the runway is about 40 years old, and the useful life of pavement is generally considered to be 20 years. So we try and pick a section that we can every year to repair based on the limited budgets we have, and just kind of do a patchwork quilt of new pavement and old pavement at the airports. And this one works really well with the closure that we're going to have anyway on the runway.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Any further questions? All right, we'll entertain a motion at this time.
Based on the information before us, I move that Bonner County approve this pavement repair.
Seconded?
There's a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, deliberation by the board. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Humke?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, up next, planning.
Thank you, Director.
Morning, Jacob L., Planning Director. So I have the first two items here are very related. So item one is a 5-year lease agreement to replace our main printer copier that's right behind my admin in the front office. So the Planning Department's Canon printer is a 5-year lease agreement, has expired. We're requesting to enter into a new 5-year lease agreement for a new printer copier. The lease covers usual items such as maintenance, toners, et cetera. It would essentially be the same costs to the department as what our currents. We've been told by Canon that this price is only good through the end of the month, and they're expecting price increases starting next month. So there's a little bit of urgency to this, and the terms of that lease are there on the memo. So.
Can I confirm, and I know you already did this, but you already looked through the number of printers you had and you purged the ones you didn't need, and so what we're being asked is to renew what you've identified as the need right now.
So
it's not adding in another, it's just renewing the lease of what we already reduced to.
So item 2 is transferring my extra printer down to Road and Bridge. So, yeah.
All right. Any further questions from the board?
Nope.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve this request to enter into a 5-year lease agreement with Canon for a 5850i printer copier.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any questions from the public on this item? You do have a question? Okay.
I'm Christian Jocelyn, risk manager. I'm assuming if the board approves this, I will put them on this copier on the insurance as well. Canon has charged us a bunch for insurance unless we have it listed as our property. So I'm assuming with the yes vote that I'll go ahead and put it on our insurance to save you extra fees, but that's all.
Okay. I would like to review that comment because I have never seen insuring a printer through our insurance for a policy because we are buying a policy of insurance with this agreement.
Yeah, that's news to me.
So I'm not.
No, we pay insurance on all printers.
Yeah, I want that to be discussed because people will sell insurance for anything, but what am I buying insurance for if I'm buying an agreement? So I'm not agreeing to that. I'm agreeing to this if we pass this. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's confirm the contract terms with the lease before we
Because I didn't see
take
that in
on
the
additional
contract.
premium cost.
And from memory, there's a spend like 15 grand they're threatening us with. So we put on our own insurance to avoid that charge. Jessica might remember, that was like a couple of years ago when that person came up.
I read the Canon lease agreement, and it doesn't have a requirement that we hold insurance for a printer.
Okay.
So please bring that to the board to review openly.
Yeah, we need the copy, we need this product, so I would recommend that we still go through and approve this, but if there's some other insurance item that we need to address separately, we could do that at a separate meeting.
Yeah, and there's no comment in this lease agreement about that. So it's fine to move forward with this, but that I'm throwing a red flag on. So, any further public comment on this? All right, seeing none, deliberation by the board.
None further.
None? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes?
Commissioner Ford?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, item number 2.
So So item number 2 here is a transfer of our Canon 5-year lease agreement for one of our printer copiers. It's a smaller one than the one you just approved. So in August of '23, we renewed this lease, and upon further review, essentially, looking over all the number of times it's been used, I think we can reduce this down and save the county some money. So the Road and Bridge Department has identified a need for a printer and has agreed to assume the remainder of the lease agreement, requesting approval to transfer both the lease and the physical equipment from the Planning Department to the Road and Bridge Department for the remainder of the lease term. For the lease agreement, Canon allows for the relocation of a printer at no cost to the county, and the relocation will be done by Canon itself. If approved, the transfer will be scheduled in coordination with Canon to ensure a smooth transition. Essentially, they'll move it for us, they'll set everything up, and they'll do that once.
And Director, if I understand correctly, the copier that Road and Bridge currently has that would be replaced, even though I know it's not your department, but from discussions, that is one that is no longer under a lease agreement, and therefore there's no longer any service and repair agreement. And so any ongoing repairs that are needed, which seem to be frequent, are direct out-of-pocket costs.
Yeah, when I've talked to Road and Bridge staff about this a couple of times, Jason and I have, and their printer's broken a couple of times, and the tech comes out every time and says it's at end of life, it's going to really die one of these days. So it's a very old, large printer, and it used to function for all of the different departments that were within that hallway. Now it's just for the 3 or 4 people there. So they think that this smaller printer with this lease is much more sufficient for their needs.
Any further questions? All right, this time we'll entertain a motion.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve this request to transfer the 3930I 5-year lease agreement with Canon from the Planning Department to the Road and Bridge Department.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Any comment from the public on this item? All right, hearing none, deliberation by the board. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Corn?
Yes.
Commissioner Dumpke?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes. All right. Alex is both online and present.
Thank you, Commissioners. Alex Van, Planning Staff. So before you is a request to approve a final plat for file SS324, plat name Love and Freedom. The above referenced plat is requesting to divide one 21-acre property into 2 lots ranging from 10 and 11 acres. The property is zoned Rural 10. The property is located off Nettlingham Road, a Bonner County-owned and privately maintained public right-of-way in Section 6, Township 58 North, Range 1 West, Boise Meridian. The lots will be served by an individual well and septic system, and this preliminary plat was approved by Bonner County on February 10th, 2025. The conditions of approval for this file have been completed, and notes and easements required by plat approval are shown on the final plat. I've included a copy of the final plat and the decision letter that was rendered to the applicant.
All right. Does the board have any questions before we make a motion?
I do not. Appreciate you providing those details so that it was easy for us to review.
All right. We'll entertain a motion at this time.
I move to approve the final plat of Love and Freedom, planning file number SS0003-24, and authorize the chair to sign the final plat.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comment from the public on this item? All right, deliberation by the board.
None.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Dumpke?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Corn?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Up next is,
Thank you, Commissioners.
thank you. Risk management. We had brought forward, I think at the beginning of this board, that we wanted to make sure we gave risk an opportunity to let you know where we stand, and that's inclusive kind of where our claims, where our cases, because people have watched tax money go to litigation a lot, and so we wanted to make sure we were doing updates on that for the public. So with that, we'll turn it over to Christian. It's a high-level view, not deep diving into it based on the way in which we have to address this type of a topic.
Thank you, Commissioners. Christian Jocelyn, Risk Management. I gave a quick, and this can be included in the public notes, just the high-level number of claims. So the windshield claims are just internal claims. It's a service we provide. You can see by month how many we have. The numbers average around from 2 or 3 windshields a month to the high of 9. That's just normal rock chips. This is not accident-related. It's just normal from being in North Idaho.
Are these county vehicles or privately owned vehicles that are being chipped?
These are all county-owned, so we encourage getting them fixed when they're a chip. It's about $30-40 for a chip or $300-400 for a crack. So we try to encourage going in. And these are no fault, meaning it could be a late report. If somebody turns one in for, mostly sheriff and road and bridge, but any department, we just authorize it right away. It's just a public safety type of thing. It's not really a tort claim, just a service, almost like insurance does. Mhm.
And one of the things that I ask that we do on the windshield rock, because we get those regularly, is that we do a regular review of where we're sending the vehicles to make sure we're getting the best rate for the chip repairs.
Sure.
And part of the reason we do the chip repair is because it saves the windshield from full need to be repaired.
And then auto claims, I have them all blended. This could be other vehicles or county vehicles. It's roughly 90% plus our own vehicles, so these are almost, there's a few outside parties, but mostly our own stuff in here too. You can see the numbers. They range from, the low would be 2 a month, all the way up to 7 is the high per month of claims for auto. And these are mostly, you might recall from previous meetings, hitting debris in the road. We've had a couple of the more expensive boulder ones, to smaller ones too. But this is any hitting deer, that type of thing. And the next one is general liability. And these are not accepted claims only, just claims that have come in. A lot of these, of course, are either mailbox or hitting a line. If we're clearing ditches, sometimes lines are not buried deep enough, like phone lines, that kind of thing. It's all included in there. And then the final one is property claims, and by definition, that's county-owned things. We've had chainsaws broken or parts, I think a chainsaw got hit by a tree, that kind of thing, or stuff lost in the lake, those type of claims. But it's all county-owned property. And then the next item is workers, and I can go in more detail if you want. Workers' comp, you can see number of claims per month there also, and it ranges from, we've had a couple months of 0, but usually 1 to 2. The high was 6. The good news is that only 1 claim since October of 2024 was a lost time claim. And that one could have been a 0 also. I think only $300 of lost time was paid out, so that's kind of a miss. We hate to have lost time claim because it gets rated differently by the insurance company, rather have it be at 0. So for this last, since 10/1, we've had only 1 claim go to lost time, yeah.
And so what that means is you have 2 different types of workers' comp claims. You have medical only, where there's just medical treatment, but then the lost time means you took time off of work, or you could have been medical only and received a permanent impairment related to an injury. And so the claims that are called lost time claims, where compensation is paid, have a higher hit to your insurance premium, and that's why you want to manage that. And one of the things that Christian is working on is for not just workers' comp claims, but also incident claims, that we do some education so that we can try to reduce our overall in-house claims that we have control over, especially when it comes to vehicles, repeat offenders of being in accidents, to do some safety training to help try to mitigate those losses.
Correct. And also on workers' comp, we changed the way we did things over the last, maybe previous 10 years. In the past, only claims that were serious and needed medical attention were reported. We really opened the floodgates that encourage any claim at all, even if no treatment is needed. We get it reported into the CIF care. That's why you see, even though the numbers are going down, in the long run, it's better to get everything in the system, even if no treatment is needed. It reduces our potential liability later instead of keeping things unreported, and all of a sudden a year later you have an issue. But
And
you
it
have experience
allows,
here too.
so one of the reasons I requested that change is it allows the county to mitigate a claim in real time. So when the event occurs is when your most evidence exists. The farther down you come into acute to chronic, and then the defensibility of claims is almost impossible if you don't encourage reporting of all incidents, whether or not they're treatment or not, which is not just workers' comp. It's if you have a trip in this building, it should be reported. That way we can try to manage the loss. And so we're trying to increase our internal risk management of claims, which you should have actually a lot of reports. That way you can mitigate those losses. And that's not evidence of more money going out. It's evidence of more education of the community of reporting things so that we can say to a person, no, we want your treatment. Because you imagine I tripped and fall, my back hurts, and then I look and I see all of the degenerative issues in your back. If I didn't look at you when it happened, you could end up with a very high claim cost for the employer versus dealing with acute versus chronic findings at the beginning.
And just one positive, two dimensions, not in my notes here, but in the past, we have claim reviews with workers' comp every quarter, so the level of involvement from the Commissioner's Office has been very high now, which is appreciated. In the past, it was more just a risk thing, so I appreciate, you always want leadership involved with your claims, so I appreciate the visibility, that helps. The transparency is good for improvement. And then the second to last item I have is just the budget thing. I called out two lines of the tort fund. One is called insurance liability. And that one I spent all the money basically on 10-1 to buy the insurance. And we're slightly over by the 24 grand just because of the increase in prices. And I have budget adjustments for next year. Removing of the EMS will help with that number too. And the final thing is tort deductible. That's the fund I use to pay all the claims because like 99% of all claims I pay in-house. So all these auto, windshield, property, all that's paid. And it's I still have funding. I'm still very positive in the tort fund. Just that one line item is higher because I'm covering some legal bills out there now, which is probably how it should have been done all along. And
Kind of to expand on that, what happened was.
I threw it out there. Sorry, little grenade.
So no, he just, if he keeps tossing it out there.
Yeah.
Because, so when it comes to the tort fund, what happened with part of his budget that hasn't happened before is when we, at the beginning of this year, we had a claim that was identified as tort litigation, and then we had a claim that was identified as just litigation. When the settlement came in from the tort litigation, I requested that his budget be the one to pay. His budget is a trap. Once he gets the money, we can't take it out. So when we have the opportunity to use the money out of tort, that's what we're supposed to be doing. And it allows the community to see that we had tort litigation for which we paid out versus kind of muddying the finances of the county. And so we're trying to address making sure that we're identifying where the leakage is of our budget, because ultimately, we don't want to pay anything out of tort. We don't want to pay settlements to people for, like, we started this year paying out $400,000 plus for litigation related to things that we could have prevented. So in part, this is a huge effort to segregate the numbers so that we can find where are we having leakage, but also as risk, we can address how do we resolve some of those issues, which some of those issues are resolved by a board that doesn't create litigation for the county. But this will be the first time his budget got hit with saying your budget is going to pay because it was called tort. So it wasn't it's a difference of a view of his tort budget. So when you see his negative number anticipation, that's not unreasonable given the change of saying we need to hold the correct lines accountable and not put money in there that just gets saved, because he has access to, I want to say it's over
$1 million.
Yeah, in a different account. We just have to open the budget to pull it forward. And that's why we pushed for him to pay out of his budget for that litigation.
And can we further clarify the tort budget for everyone, that when we say we can't take it out, we can pay things that are appropriate to pay out of the tort budget, as was indicated. We can't reallocate it into other, when we say we can't take it out, we can't reallocate it to a different budget for a different use as we can some other budgets. So that's why we're so limited on how it, is that the correct way to state it?
Because if every year his budget is going to request more money for tort. And once he gets it, if he doesn't spend it, it's trapped in there. So we have to make sure that when something comes up, because we shouldn't take more from taxpayers than we need. So we need to make sure that his budget is actually spending the tort and not just growing a tort litigation budget that basically says, we're just looking for a really big lawsuit to crash that budget.
Yep.
That's a good point to clarify. It's that we have to spend it on what is deemed tort. So insurance is a thing we can spend it on, and claims like the tort claim that was identified. The other claim that wasn't identified as tort didn't get paid out of his budget. It got paid out of the civil lit budget.
Exactly, and the board is probably fixing allocations where it might have been paid out of like civil lit instead of out of tort, so it's good to fix those things. And just to repeat what you said, so true is, one of my goals is to spend zero, because every dollar spent on a claim is something taken from sheriff office or road and bridge or, waterways that they could have used to serve the public, so every dollar spent on a claim is a loss.
I think also we need to give us credit for the changes that we're making in risk and insurance have resulted in us, for example, insurance wanting us to pay a check that after review of my panic mode of insurance, we are not in that phase. That was over a $300,000 case there. And that took a lot of risk looking at our contracts, with legal looking at our contracts and arguing with attorneys in a unified approach. That's important you guys don't get to know all the specifics, but that's what we're working on when it comes to risk and litigation and mitigating costs like that, and taking the stance that we can be unified across departments to kind of protect the Bonner County taxpayer money.
Yep. And the final thing is, just it shows on here, renewals. We completed them early. The board had requested, it's always a frustration for our clerk too, is that we don't have the numbers for renewal until budget has been set. So one challenge was get all the applications done, so it's been done now for a week or two, both with our current and with the ICRIMP option, so we're just waiting now. I think Travelers had promised to give a quote early also, so not waiting until after budget's set, so hopefully we'll have that.
But you also have to take credit on that one too, because we heard the concern of the clerk's office, and you prepared everything in advance so that we can have the best opportunity to get the most realistic number when we go into budget.
Yep.
And that is a change from how we've done things in the years past. It used to be that we come to the end, the budget is done, and then we get our quote, and then the clerk says, well, that's higher than we expected it to be. And so adjustments were made to meet the needs of the clerk's office from the risk department. That'll give us a better idea as we go into the budget talks.
Absolutely.
And part, I want to make sure the community knows when we're doing things, you guys don't get to see all of the changes, but it's when you come up to give a report, we have to also identify where we've improved and seeing true results. And I think that that's important, and you hit that deadline of getting everything together before to not just Travelers and Redmond, but also to ICRIMP in advance of us coming into budget. So thank you for that effort.
Thank you. And the final item is not on my list, but I'll just say it quick, is I'm working on the new software that you approved. My goal is to have full transparency. It won't have the people's names or maybe individual claims, but the public and all their department heads elected will be able to see how we're trending live, like a dashboard. So with the new system, that will be doable. I'm feeding the data in right now, so stay tuned for more features. That's it.
All right, we have to let the community ask you questions.
Oh, that was part of
We
the
always
deal.
do public comment. Christina.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Christina Nicholas Anderson for the record. And I just was wondering, following up, he had mentioned the tort claims. Was the Scott Bauer lawsuit ever settled? And if so, what was the payout on that?
There is no settlement of any legal claims to report.
Okay, thank you.
If a settlement on a claim, I put under the D2 report litigation because people want to know settlement dollars, I will be able to report a settlement dollar amount during that every Tuesday if one happens. But there is. Any further public comments, questions? All right, any questions from the board?
Nope.
All right, thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing the work to put together that information.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks.
All right, District 1 Commissioner update.
All right, so community-related concerns and suggestions, as well as how those impact my tasks. First, I want to thank our Road and Bridge Director, a community member at the last week's meeting, brought forward a concern about the restoration of grass within an area that's being worked on in the county right-of-way for utilities. And so the board asked the road and bridge director to address that, and he did that same day and had a positive outcome. As a result of that, learning what our current utility permit language was, I also asked the road and bridge director to amend that language to clarify that a site needs to be restored to the pre-construction conditions. And so they've already gone ahead and updated that permit so that for all future permits that get pulled, we'll have more specific language to have clear expectations for the contractors that are doing the work. So my thanks for the rapid response on that and for the citizen coming forward to make us aware of the concern. On a similar vein, I also want to thank Road and Bridge for responding very quickly. We noticed that there was an area on Clagstone Road. You folks might know where the new guardrail was put in on that steep bank. There was some excessive erosion that happened this spring of the bank, and it started to undermine the pavement on the edge there, which would have been very unsafe if that pavement had failed. So that was noticed. And once that was brought to their attention, they went out same day and they were able to correct that erosion on the bank and shore up the pavement so that we won't have any safety issues there. So this is sort of a public service announcement. If anyone sees what they think is an unsafe condition anywhere, within the county, but especially on county roads, the sooner we know, the sooner we can take action and we can prevent additional damage and or potential safety threats. So we would really appreciate citizens notifying us as quickly as possible. It's very helpful. Continuing to receive and respond to other questions that come in about road repairs and maintenance. As everyone knows, we're getting into the season now. You're seeing our roads getting regraded from the spring breakup, as well as there's a lot of prep work going in. There'll be culverts being replaced in different areas throughout the county that were scheduled, and there will also be prep work done for areas that are going to be paved. So just ask everyone to be patient and to be looking for construction activities for those flaggers and signs to slow down and be safe, please. Also wanted to indicate that I'm continuing to work with Road and Bridge and now legal on the railroad crossing quiet zone approach. So it's hopeful that over the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to meet with those community members again, get additional input, and then finalize a proposed process that I can then bring to the board for the board to consider adopting. So for those community members who are passionate about this, please know that it's continuing to be worked on. I've also had a question about herd districts come up. So for folks who are familiar with open range laws and things of that nature, so I'm currently looking into how to modify a herd district within our county and what that process looks like. It's not something that comes up very often, as I've learned, and so I'm having to do a bit of research on that. But that is something that I'll be looking into further, and I have one or more members of the community who are very knowledgeable on that, and so they're helping with providing some background information, and I appreciate that. And will be reviewed with legal so we can figure out the best and appropriate process to address that. One of my biggest areas of focus at the moment and continuing to get community feedback, which I appreciate and value, is to review the proposed comprehensive plan, land use map, and land use component with its land use designations. I'm working on preparing recommendations for the board to consider at our next workshop for how we might be able to improve the work that's already been presented by the Planning Commission. And then also, the board's been very engaged over the past week. This isn't just me, this is the whole board with considering the proposed Panhandle Health District budget. And we had a special meeting about that yesterday. So I encourage folks to become more aware of what's happening with Panhandle Health District services and their budget and how that impacts our county, and the position that our board has taken on trying to represent our citizens of our county as best we can within a district that represents 5 counties. So just want to advocate for everyone. There was also a special meeting that happened on Saturday with Panhandle Health. And so again, if citizens have any concerns or ideas about what the health district provides for services, how it functions, how the budget works, I encourage you to become more engaged and involved and learn about that process and participate in that. And then yesterday I presented an overview through a special workshop of all of the different types of boards and committees and commissions that support our county government. And we are working on creating a summary document to add to the website that helps people understand what those are. And through the process of developing that and having a conversation about it in our workshop yesterday, we're gaining awareness as to some of these types of bodies that advise and or do work for the county were established so long ago that all of the records associated with the formation, the ordinances, the resolutions and things are only paper records. They weren't done digitally. They're not easy to find and access. So we're having to track all that down, kind of do a paper hunt, understand what, how they were formed. And now what we've decided is we want to evaluate whether or not any of those should be modified. Should we reconsider the size of the entity, the term that somebody has, the qualifications, all of the things that go into how to have a really effective body that's taking action or advising the county for these different areas. And so, again, if people have an interest in that, please continue to check our website and communicate with us, because each of these different types of boards and committees, we're constantly having situations where somebody's term expires, and so we're interviewing and accepting applications for someone new, or somebody might leave a board early. And so there are continued opportunities for members of the public to engage in asking to be a member of one of these bodies. And so the more citizens we have who are interested, the greater the pool of applicants we have, the better the job we can do to look for the best aligned people with backgrounds of experience, a passion and an interest in these different topics. So just want to encourage everybody in that. And then I just want to reiterate what was brought up at the very beginning of the meeting. There was a lot of community members who are expressing concern over House Bill 180 that has to do with the broadband and cell tower infrastructure that Ann Champion spoke about at the beginning. Just want to let you know again that we are planning to have a special workshop for the board to discuss what path we want to take going forward. And so encourage community members to participate in that. The board even received a letter yesterday from someone indicating their concern about health and safety issues. I will state, because there's confusion about this, that no matter how much members of the board might share in the concerns over health and safety impacts, the potential of those to folks in close proximity to, or other considerations of such as a cell tower, the reality, unfortunately, is that the 1996 decision at the federal level on these facilities does not legally allow the county to consider health and safety impacts in our decision. And so I will say I'm very frustrated by that fact. I don't like it, but our hands are legally tied. If we based a decision on that, it would be overturned on the courts and we'd have no leg to stand on. So we have to use other rationale to make our judgments and base our decisions on when it comes to these cell towers and these wireless facilities. So just want the public to understand that their concern is shared, but we have to attack it from a different angle. So. And then I'm just going to close my portion. This is a personal statement for me, but in addition to the other person that was recognized that was passed away yesterday, a family friend and member of our community, her name is Joyce Jordan. She's the mother of 13. She still has 6 kids at home, and she unexpectedly and tragically passed away yesterday. I'm going to use this as a public service announcement. We still don't have the full details, but her final prognosis was that she succumbed to Rocky Mountain spotted. I'm sorry, I can't even get it right now. It's a tick-borne disease, and early treatment appears to be the key in addressing it. So in any case, I want people to be aware that while it's a very small % chance of contracting such a disease, that because of our wonderful outdoor lifestyles that we like to live and all of the time we spend outside,
that there is a risk there, and if somebody thinks that they have an issue, to get it checked quickly would be helpful. But I really just wanted to provide a heartfelt condolence to the family and to the friends of Joyce Jordan for this very tragic and unexpected loss. That's all I have to report, so if anybody has any questions on any of the items that I presented, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have Teresa had her hand up.
Good morning, Teresa Heisner. I'd like to offer my condolences to Miss Joyce. It is Rocky Mountain spotted fever. It's absolutely horrible. Thank you for sharing that. If there's anything the community can do to help her, we're here for her. I had a few questions regarding the planning and zoning, the hearings. I'm having a heck of a time getting in or finding any of these agendas or access to them. A lot of the county meetings are in the order they are set is older first and newer at the bottom. So to me, the website is not easy to navigate. Also, the ordinances, Asia has sent them to me several times over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. I've asked the sheriff for them. I can't get into them. I don't know if it's me. I mean, I'm not techie, but it shouldn't be that hard to be able to get into our county ordinances. So those are some of my concerns and questions. And again, deepest condolences to Miss Joyce.
Thank you, Teresa. I'll look at the access, and I know what you mean about we'll look at the calendar as well. And for folks who aren't aware, when looking at the calendar for the meetings and events that's on the main landing page of the county website, there are numerous tabs at the top of that calendar. So it's really important that folks know that there are tabs. So depending on which content you're looking for, right now the default tab is the ag protection area. We also have the ambulance service district, the commissioners, planning. We have a number of different tabs there. So I recommend that people be sure that they are selecting the correct tab for the content that they're looking for. And then you can you can either select a calendar day and it'll take you immediately to that page, or you can scroll through that list, and it does start at the first of the month and then work its way through the calendar from start to finish of the month. So we can certainly look at if there are some opportunities for enhancement, but just to help people understand how to navigate what's there currently, please be aware of those tabs or you may not see the content that you're looking for.
Can I add something? Because I actually had that on my list of concerns. The order is we have requested a change. It's not within our technologies department's ability to flip the order such that the current date is first and then you scroll to the bottom. But we're looking at how we can get the developer to make that change, because that is very frustrating when you click on meetings that it starts with the oldest and you have to find it. But once you find it, when you're in that view where you see older first, if you scan all the way to the right, that's where you'll see the documents that are attached to that meeting. But the issue that you described is being looked at for a change. I'll cross that off my list of things to say. Any other questions for Commissioner Domke? All right, seeing none. District 2 report. So the website is a complaint that I've received a lot this week, actually. A lot of people don't like it. It's not user-friendly. Jake is looking at that. The other thing that we're working on is the Microsoft migration to reduce the duplication of licenses, which essentially is cost associated with having 2 different ones. So we'll be working on doing a open discussion at one of our meetings to show where we are with that. We have a continued community question on Fair Board and the payment to the person at $5,000. I have asked for the document that shows what the change in job description was. I have not received that. I'm waiting for some direction from legal on how we go about addressing that aspect. I know that one of the requests from the chair was that a job description be identified and comparing it to other counties. My response to that was Bonner County already had a bookkeeper who is actually working for the ambulance district at a significantly lower cost, and that's inclusive of payroll.
And so it hasn't fallen off my radar. It's just on the list of waiting for responses, which is also inclusive of giving the expectation that all Fair Board members need to utilize the county email so that we have access to the communication, because records request, you need to be able to pull that. We need to have access. We don't have access to someone's personal email, so they shouldn't be communicating with community members about Fair Board issues through personal emails, because we have a public records retention requirement. So we're working on that. I know that it's slow moving, but it hasn't dropped from radar. Update on litigation, we don't have any settlements. We are doing a much better job as a board of bringing forward, and you'll see tomorrow, there's a calendar item for litigation update where we're going through what's open, where are we at, and pushing for closure and resolution of claims to reduce even just the exposure and the fees associated with legal. So that continues to be ongoing, and whenever there is a settlement, I will report out the case and the dollar amount. That's what the statute tells me that I can report. So for everybody, I'll reiterate, there are no settlements at this time. With the county, we still have open cases. The case mentioned by Christina remains open, but there is no settlement. We're not looking at board positions. We did fill the Fair Board position. Hopefully people see her as an improvement to that particular item, or to that particular board. The workshop that's pending, will the 27th of Tuesday at 8 a.m. work for your cell tower? And while she's looking at her calendar, next Tuesday at 8 a.m. is our jury duty discussion. The jury commissioner wants to give education to the county. There's a lot of chatter on Facebook about that particular section. So he's going to do a presentation for the county on how it happens and what we're supposed to do. I'm going to talk about a committee that I think it's very important that Bonner County know exists. It's at the state level. It's called the Land Use and Housing Study Committee. The first meeting is going to be tomorrow. You can watch this meeting online. The focus, and I'm going to tell you, it was concerning when we originally heard about it at the conference. It was stated to be affordable housing, for which I had questions on, and I reached out to a couple of the representatives that are actually sitting on this board who corrected what it is. But the correction has more concerns for me. So the first topic is going to be housing inventory overview. Then we're going to talk about resort city overview, then local zoning landscape, then it will be Idaho Building Code review, and then committee discussion. So Senator Woodward is the chair, co-chair on this one. He appointed Jeremy Grimm to sit on this committee. I contacted Representative Redmond and asked to be appointed to be on this committee because we need to be aware from a county perspective of what's happening and give county input. Redmond agreed to appoint me to this particular committee. So I'm going to actively address issues that have come to my attention. One of the things that didn't get resolved in this last session were addressing the homeowner's exemption. Until we stop putting everything as a shifting of tax burden, which we have to recognize that's what it is, we have to also recognize that we're not paying attention to the people that are here and the increase. And so that's one of the topics that I addressed with Representative Redmond yesterday, of a constant conversation about how more people come, not addressing the people that are here, and we haven't shifted. He is in agreement, but the concern that I have on this particular committee is the level of review on what the local people are doing in zoning. And to me, that means the counties and the cities need to be present. And I'm going to be very clear, Graham is participating not as mayor of Sandpoint. He is participating as Whiskey Rock Planning. That was a distinction that was given to me when I had the call with Representative Redmond yesterday. And so that was also one where I'm telling people, as a community, we need to be involved in this and hear what's happening, because when the state is looking at local, we need to be involved, and reaching out to the people that sit on this committee to give some input to the people that sit on this committee is going to be important. I explained last week that I sit now on the Idaho Suicide Prevention Committee. I have the 988 things to pass out to our law enforcement and emergency services. One of what I'm getting back from representatives is the lack of access for minors to 988 and 911 was an unintended consequence of the way in which the parental rights bill was written. When you leave the question as a standalone, should a minor be able to have treatment through 911 or a call with 988, that inherently alone isn't the issue, but because it was attached to other things, the bill itself failed. The result is that 988 has a legal concern associated with if they know it's a minor, because by the way the bill is written, the minor is restricted from 988, which extends to the way it's written to like 911. If you're providing care, that's what the restriction of the way it's written is. So I did speak with actually a lot of people in the state. Wyoming did do a bill kind of to specifically carve out this critical service to put it forward as a standalone. I did ask some of the representatives that voted yes and no what their concerns were, and I think it just was an unintended and not recognized consequence of the way it was written. But they're equally agreeable to work on fixing it, but it's not going to be fixed before the next legislative session. But I'm going to get to writing it and working with the representatives to put it before our legislature to make sure that minors have access. One of the big things that we're working on is bringing more visibility to veteran suicide. I want to make sure I say thank you to Amy Lunsford for linking me up with a number of contacts with veterans who are interested in that particular focus of reducing suicide. I do have a correction to give, and I'll say thank you to Elizabeth for reaching out to me. The Rotary Club in Old Town isn't closing. That's not the one that's closing. I received the incorrect answer. But they too are wanting to work on veterans. So I wanted to make sure I gave that correction. Some of the things that I'm focused heavily on budget, working with the people that I liaison with to focus zero-based line by line so that we should be looking at opportunities to reduce the county budget. That's part of my view. So I have gone through with everybody and done that. They've done a really good job. I'm working on how do we present, not just tell you this is the budget, but actually do a presentation that gives some explanation to you. I am as chair, I will sit on the board on Thursday to address the budget that they are requesting. From a board of Bonner County Commissioners, we have a consensus of a disagreement of the budget presented. One of the issues, and it's not just my opinion, if you watch yesterday's discussion, and they'll chime in and say I'm wrong if I'm wrong, that they're asking for over $500,000 from Bonner County with a concession that they don't provide services at that level to Bonner County. That's a problem for Bonner County, because if you're not providing services to Bonner County at that level, I can spend my money in Bonner County and help Bonner County. Do I believe that that will stop a budget from passing? Probably not, but I'm not going to just agree to a budget, and that is what our board has put forward. We did get a call back from the Director of Panhandle Health wanting to give us some information on clinical services. I am going to send that email for that information, but I honestly don't believe the information is going to make me see an improvement in clinical services in Bonner County. Bonner County is consistently, as residents, being pushed to go to Kootenai County. But when you're asking for that much money from our county and you agree that the services are minimal, I have to say I'm not going to approve that kind of budget. If we're only going to enhance Kootenai County, then Kootenai County should pay, is the position of our board. Correct? I didn't say it wrong?
No, in fact, I think theirs actually went down a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah. So that's where our board is on the decision. And so my position on the Panhandle Health Board is the vote is not the vote of the chair, it's the vote of Bonner County Commissioners that I present to Panhandle Health. And so one of the other things that I did ask the chair of Panhandle Health is Dr. Fletcher, and then we have Glenn Bailey. Those two are our representatives. I did request that they make quarterly reports to Bonner County in the open meeting so that we can ask them questions. As commissioners, that's what they are sent down there for, is to bring that information to our board. The other issue we had with their budget was capital improvement project budget. I threw some shade on their $200,000 request for carpet. We don't have new carpet. That's a lot of money for carpet. So there were some things in there that we as a board didn't like. My job is to make sure that that is communicated at the health district's level, that one of the things that we have a consensus as a board of is that Panhandle Health can direct people to services within the community that already exist. We don't need to pay to provide services at Panhandle Health under the guise of what if that service no longer becomes available? That is not what Bonner County feels we need to do. As a Board of Commissioners, the consensus was it's okay for them to direct to Heritage Health. It's okay to direct to Conixu. It's okay for them to say if you don't have insurance, this is how you apply, because the Affordable Care Act, which has inherent issues with it, it doesn't allow someone to not be able to be qualified to be insured. If you can't afford it, you are going to get insurance. So from a board view, that's the direction we see Panhandle Health taking, not taking on the obligation of opening clinical services. To be clear, our building here, they are there once a week. So that tells you it's not a service that we are frequenting as Bonner County. And that was the view that our board took when we heard their presentation, and then we scheduled an additional meeting yesterday to bring forward a greater discussion on what does our board want our vote to be on Thursday when I represent Bonner County. So that's important for you guys to know. The other thing that I'm doing, and Clerk Rosedale is also participating with, 2 judges we're interviewing for magistrates. We have whittled it down to people that we're going to actually interview on Friday for the new judge positions. Some people have given their input on the people that they want to be selected. So the transparency, objectivity, and sticking to the rules is a lot of the comments that I got back from community members of what they found important, and not deviating to what their personal goals or aspirations were, but being concrete and objective, fair and balanced, was a significant input that I got. So that's a lot to report, but I still will ask, do you guys have any questions? No questions? Do you guys like getting the reports from commissioners, what we're working on? Part of what we're trying to do is make sure you know we are full-time and we are spending your money to work here. I want you to know what I'm doing, and I want you to hold me accountable for not just attending a meeting, but what actual work am I facilitating, and the views that I'm not just voting as Asia when I cast a vote, it's what is the community saying their issues and concerns are. Let me ask you, the 27th, Tuesday, 8 a.m.
Yeah, I
Okay, so commissioner chat, and you'll get Wired Idaho together. So I'll put out that notice. So we'll do the commissioner chat on the 27th for Wired Idaho to do an update video. All right.
So what is that, but that's not the workshop that
Nope.
Brian's doing?
Nope,
That's-
not the workshop. That's like the Wired Idaho video that we did.
Okay. So
All right.
I will get together some people to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, can we just clarify for everyone, if you don't mind? So you're basically doing a public service announcement, right, about your perspectives on the cell towers and opportunities to do fiber optic installation and things of that nature. The other meeting is a board workshop for the board to discuss what changes we would like to pursue making to the ordinance, the county ordinance and the codes regarding permitting for the cell towers. And so that'll be a public meeting. The public's welcome to come and participate, but this other meeting is for the board to work. We see this as an urgent issue, so we're scheduling a meeting so we can start to actually figure out how to solve the problem.
And part of the reason to do your update from Wired Idaho is it will help actually with the workshop about the ordinance, because you have some information to put forward. And so doing that ahead of time with an update from the people that, especially on the ordinance itself, and that compare contrast can help the board with the workshop itself.
You want input on the Dalton Gardens ordinance or on?
That's what you're asking us to do, and I know that this board, I did send the video, but this board didn't review the Dalton Gardens ordinance, but that's one of the ones that you're feeling that we should look at. And so giving that in a presentation, and then when we come to the workshop, it'll allow for
a very, we don't have to rehear that information. We will have it to address kind of what is the template or a potential ordinance for that.
Do you have a tentative date for the workshop at all?
Yeah, we're trying to get that on the calendar as soon as we can. So actually, I don't know how the sequence is going to work out between the two meetings.
Well, the
We'll
video
just-
will make it archived, so that'll allow you to.
I just mean
kind
it's possible. I don't know if we might hold our meeting before that happens or not, depending on when we can fit it in the schedule.
I don't
So
think we will based on our
we
budget.
have a tight
meeting.
schedule.
Yeah, I
but-
looked at the
but this is a
schedule.
urgent item, so.
I don't think that we're gonna fit the ordinance in before the 27th. And even if you want us to do extra work before that, it doesn't mean that we are passing something, and so we could do another one. All right,
Yeah,
so.
we probably will need more than one workshop, and and we'll have to consider your schedule too.
Were you going to read that Dalton Gardens and give us bullet points?
I'm not even gonna, that's not where we are. Questions, Diane Welly.
Yes, I wanted to comment what you had asked. Did we like hearing the commissioner reports? It is of great interest to hear what commissioners are doing individually in their office. Our silence does not indicate a lack of interest. It's just that there's a lot that you report and we're taking it in. But thank you so much. When you give a detailed report that way, we know what you're doing when we don't see you on these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa?
Good morning again, Teresa Heisner, Bonner County. I wasn't paying attention when you went over what Dr. Fletcher asked for Panhandle Health. Did I hear $200,000 for carpet?
Dr. Fletcher did not request that. Panhandle Health is requesting that in their budget.
Okay, well, that's what I meant.
I want to make sure because Dr. Fletcher is opposed to that, so I don't want that, I don't want to say it that way. You have the board of Panhandle Health, which he is the chair of, and then you have Panhandle Health that has the director. So the director's budget as presented to Bonner County is inclusive of that.
Correct. Okay, well, just for the record, I'm opposed to it as well. Did you go over everything that Panhandle Health asked for in their budget?
One of the problems that I have, and I think the board has, is that Panhandle Health gave too high of an overview of their budget, and they didn't go granular to show why they need the money at the numbers. And for our own budget as Bonner County, this board is actually asking for a more detailed, granular review of budgets. I can't account for how $500,000+ is going to be spent within Panhandle Health when you just tell me, I've got this amount in capital improvements, and the comment was made, part of that is $200,000 for carpet and a discussion on buildings. And then another number that gets presented says, this is what we need for clinical services, but it doesn't tell me, how did you come to that figure? And that's what Bonner County is asking for, is you're asking for over $500,000 out of my budget, and I don't see the services that Bonner County receives for it. And that's the issue that we had even in their presentation, was it was very high level with just dollar amounts and not a little bit line by line, and not so granular, but a little bit more substance to come up with some of these numbers. And
Sorry. Thank you for answering my question. I agree. Asking for $500,000 without a detailed list is unacceptable.
Wayne Martin.
Thank you, Commissioners. Wayne Martin, Bonner County resident for the record. Yes, it's nice to get a report as much as possible of what the commissioners are doing. Unfortunately, because of time schedule, not able to make it always online to watch the meetings, but I do watch YouTube. I do want to thank you, Asia, for stepping up on the committee that was being talked about, the new state land use and all. Hearing things that were brought up are of great concern to me, especially to allow developers less restrictions, if I understand it correctly from what was said. probably a question I have is, will the commissioners be looking at creating a new commission in dealing with this? Have you even considered the possibility of that, especially if this takes place, especially with Woodward and Jeremy Grimm being involved on this? So I do appreciate your stepping up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. The first meeting will be tomorrow. And then next week, I believe the committee will be in Sandpoint. And I agree that there's potential for the board to need to have to follow along with this committee and maybe have its own meetings to review what they're discussing and how it will impact Bonner County. So it's just where we literally heard about it last week, and I threw a flag on it and called. So we're in the infancy of it, but your issues and concerns are heard. And I encourage everybody to log on and watch this meeting tomorrow. Reg Crawford.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Reg Crawford, Bonner County. I also like the reports, and thank you. I'm, of course, here again going to make another point about why the minor land division code is an unsolvable problem, and all land divisions need to be placed back under LUPA.
Reg, I'm going to pause you for public comment because this is a question to me about.
Oh, I thought this was public comment time. Thank you.
No worries. Wendy. Wendy going once.
Oh,
there you go. Yes,
okay. Wendy Cosette, Bonner County. First, I would just like to reiterate what others have said. I think going over what you're doing for your own district is wonderful and very helpful, and just shows a lot of transparency, and I personally very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for bringing this land use committee to our attention. That's got a lot of concerns. And regarding Panhandle Health, I would just say I have tremendous concerns regarding their behavior as a board, specifically about their hesitancy to add additional informed consent on medical products. I find it absolutely shocking that they're putting up so much resistance to this.
Wendy, can I ask you if you have a question for me about my report, though? This second question about what I reported.
I guess just to see, I would definitely like to see the granular detail of what the money that they're asking for, Panhandle Health.
All right, thank you. All right. Were you standing up for a question for me, or you sat down and changed your mind? All right, we'll go over to Commissioner Korn.
Okay, so a little bit of redundancy here, talking about Panhandle Health. I attended the meeting in person last Saturday. It was a great workshop. They're looking at what the future looks like for clinical services, such as been stated already. And they did an exercise on the people in the room, the commissioners and the board members of Panhandle Health, trying to figure out their weaknesses, their strengths, things like that. And really one of the top issues was the lack of trust that the public has with the medical establishment these days, and how can Panhandle Health try and repair that and fix that. And we gave them some great suggestions that we've already talked about before, such as Wendy was talking about with the informed consent, which seems to be getting a lot of pushback for some reason. I don't know what the problem is with just informing the people of what the facts are and the truth. But we're talking about big pharma and big medical establishment there, so there's going to be a lot of pushback. There's going to be some paving going on this week on North Center Valley Road between Selly and Culver just so the people in that area know what's going on. Pleased to announce that our Colburn Mall is now open. 2 weeks ago in this meeting, it was discussed with a lot of public comment, and a great little gal that stood up and talked to everybody here. Her name was Poppy. So I want to just give a shout out to her and for all the public comment and for all the public supports on Facebook and everything else. Thank you to Director Howard for following through on his timeline, making this happen. We're used to government giving us deadlines and never meeting those deadlines, and so this was a great thing that happened on time. And also visited the House of the Lord Academy last week in Old Town. And I was very impressed with their services and their curriculum. Anybody that would like to have a private school curriculum in that area, I would highly recommend going and checking that out and seeing if that's something that you might be interested in. That's all I have.
All right. Are you going to take questions or just go to public comment?
No, just go to public comment.
All right, now we're on public comment. Yeah, John.
John Dupree, I'm a resident of the county, and I gotta tell you, I love the fact that we're getting the commissioner reports. In fact, I look forward to it because I'm getting the little details. I come to these things because I want to understand what's going on. And the older I get, the harder it is for me to understand things. I don't know why, but it seems to be the case. You mentioned something about 1998, I think it was, that the federal did a thing. Well, you know, we had COVID that happened since then, and public awareness of health issues and stuff has come to the forefront a lot more than it did way back when. And this Wi-Fi business, internet stuff, I love having it, but I've been reading a whole lot of controversy, we'll call it, about the health issue. And I know, as you said, this is not a county commissioner level type of thing, but I do believe that the tail can wag the dog if it's done with enough intensity. And this person right here is probably the best tail wagger I could find to move the dog. And I mean that as a compliment, my friend.
That'll be
Okay?
on the newspaper, Asia Williams tail wagger, but I'll take it, I'll take it.
Big mistake. Okay,
No,
but-
you're good, I'll take it.
Okay, but the point is that we need to, in our discussions, think about, what's it, 4 and 5 and the impact of those things on our mind, on our bodies. And I mean, as much as I want universal coverage for my computers and phones and stuff, if it makes us sick, gives us headaches, kills us, that's probably not a good thing. So please include that in your discussions. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Bill Rusk, and I represent a small group out at the airport that had a little issue with airport management regarding some water and sewer. And I'm here today to say thank you. In a public forum where it's recorded, we wanted to say thank you for your integrity and your moral character that allowed for us to attain an equitable solution. Difficult situation. And on behalf of myself and Brent Frericks, Al Donardi, and Jeff Hallbeck, we wanted to say thank you. We certainly appreciate it. Your integrity and your moral character is a credit to yourself and to the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, Bill.
Fred Arns, still a Bonner County resident, to some people's chagrin. I kind of wanted to.
We have tried.
I kind of wanted to talk about very poorly written resolutions and bills and laws and bring up one in the past that just kind of keeps on giving.
I heard you wanted to make a committee of resolutions while Jennifer is gone so you could help the county so you could reduce your frustration.
You're using my time.
No one's looking at your time. Are you making a committee for resolution writing?
No, what I'm going to do is point out that it's come to my attention that the homeowners at Camp Bay want to rip-rap the better part of the bay, which I think probably directly affects, depending on where it's going to go. My understanding is substantial amount. The beach, access to the water. I think it's kind of hard to have a picnic, family picnic on the top of a large boulder, but I would appreciate it if the commissioners would look into that and perhaps stand up for us poor little taxpayers that don't seem to get a lot of say-so in things. Thanks.
Or do you know where the riprap is going? Is it on the spot?
Idaho Department of Lands, it's substantial.
Okay.
They have a permit in.
And I copied you on the email for the 27th date.
Yeah, Ann Wilder Chamberlain, Bonner County resident. So my comment is regarding this rewriting the public hearing process. I'd like to make a suggestion. In Kootenai County, when the planning department, which is an elected body, makes a ruling on a subject, it then goes to the commissioners to make a final decision. However, in Bonner County, if the planners rule against the residents have to pay to be heard by their elected officials, the commissioners. I believe that Bonner County should change that. That the public hearing process should resemble that of Kootenai County. The citizens should be heard by their elected officials without additional costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne, can I have your comment? It is this point where I remember that we need to bring that forward to address, should we charge people to be heard by the Board of Commissioners, is what your question is.
That's correct. Should.
Tanya Wilson, Bonner County resident. I zoomed in on last Saturday's meeting and I was a bit taken aback by a comment from the gentleman who sort of runs the Panhandle Health, not the elected official, but the gentleman that runs it, indicating that there were wait times for people to get in to clinic appointments, but yet we have one clinic day a week. I couldn't make heads or tails of that. Either we have waits here or we don't.
Everybody has waits in healthcare. You don't get to just say, I see you today. The doctor puts you in the schedule.
I understand that, but
his comment about wait times was to justify the need for clinical services, as if a wait time is negative, when anybody that goes to the doctor for an appointment, you're not getting seen when you call. If it's urgent, you go to urgent care.
Right. So I appreciate you guys understanding that there's some issues there. Either we have a wait time at our clinic, meaning people are waiting weeks and weeks to get in, or we only serve clients once a week. And does that justify this massive amount of money that we're being asked to give? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are asking for more data to help to have them justify the claims of issues.
So after Cheryl goes, I'm going to go to online because they've had their hands up.
Cheryl Messer, for the record. I'm not really overly prepared for this, but during COVID, we ended up with Elon Musk in our backyard with the satellite thing. And I have friends that had to move out of here who were electromagnetic sensitive, and they almost died through this. And I ended up talking to my daughter, who was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and her title was electronic warfare subject matter expert. That's me. So frequency can harm, and more information is coming out on what frequencies can do to us. Obviously, none of us would want to sit inside a microwave oven. And I just thank you that you're willing to look at it. Safety is so important, and we tried challenging that, a group of us in Selly Valley, having Elon Musk there with Starlink, and my daughter helped do some of the legwork on that, or give us information. But we had to then, because our ordinance only talked about the physical structure of these things, then we had to challenge the FCC. Well, we didn't get very far because we didn't have enough money. But RFK, his organization, Children's Defense, Children's Health Defense Organization, and another one had gone to court. I think it was in 2021. They got a decision from the court against the FCC, that the FCC had to go back and look. I don't know if that was the 1996, their last time they looked at health stuff on the cell phones or anything else was like 1996, 1990s. And the 5G and none of that was available at that time, but we've been living under it. So thank you in trying to address that. Safety is number one. If we don't have safety, what do we have? Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy. Wendy? Going once, Wendy. Going twice. All right, we'll slide down to Teresa.
Good morning again, Teresa Heisner, Priest River. I just wanted to say I support Ann 100% in her efforts with Wire Idaho and updating our ordinances, which is super important. A lot of things are archaic around here, around our country, frankly. Bringing power back to the people at a local level is super important and not just allowing one person, which I'm going to call our dictator governor, to say what we can and can't do in our county. And those that are paying attention, wireless frequencies and geoengineering do go hand in hand. And also my question, Asia or Brian or Corn, whoever wants to answer, where do I find this meeting tomorrow? And did I hear Zoom is available? Thank you.
Zoom is available. I will ask that we post it on our front page, but I will email you directly the information right now.
Which meeting?
I'm assuming she's talking about the committee that I said she should Zoom into, the land use.
Yep, that's the one. Thank you.
That's at 8.
Let me see. Let's go to Wayne Martin.
Wayne Martin, Bonner County resident for the record. I'd be interested in the link if you don't mind. I'm hoping that Jason Top is still there. But on roads and bridges, I know that they are planning on paving the Edgemere Cutoff and Bay Road. I happen to come up Diagonal Road in Kootenai County, coming up to Bruner. There's a curve and a stop sign. And they have, it appeared to be, I did not stop and create a traffic hazard, taking out sections of the roadway, creating a bumping effect as you're driving up there. So whether you're speeding faster than you should be or you're going at a slower rate of speed, it's an awareness situation of that curve. I've mentioned it before. I do want to make sure that it is mentioned again, that paving that road, my opinion and that of others, is that it is going to create a traffic hazard, a serious problem with people exceeding the 35 speed limit that at this time it's going to be, and all. I'm definitely afraid of what's going to occur, either somebody hitting me or somebody else and all. I do wish to thank Jason, working very hard on the 90-degree turn on Spirit Lake Cutoff. I happened to listen to that this morning, his report, and that was very good. I, again, Asia, wish to commend you for bringing to his attention, and I had not thought about it, that instead of allowing the money to be going to another company to hold on to, that it be put into an account with Bonner County, and that Bonner County Roads and Bridges be able to get the interest off of that large sum of money versus a different company, which you know darn well they would end up putting it into that and collecting that interest and not passing it on. That's all that I have for right now. Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Martin, would you be willing to call or email me to clarify where the area of concern is on the road? I got a little lost in the...
On Bay Edgemere, is that where you're talking about?
Yeah, you mentioned coming up from Diagonal, and I got confused about where you were
Okay.
in your
I was
conversation.
coming up Diagonal northbound. So on Diagonal northbound, just before Bruner, there is a stop sign at Bruner and Diagonal, or Diagonal and Bruner. If you backtrack coming northbound before that curve, there, it appeared to me that they had cut out sections, or they did not pour sections. They'd put forms in there to create a ridge or a mark system, very similar to the discs that they put in on roadways to alert drivers when they start to fall asleep or are running off the road.
Okay.
Better
I-
clarify for
I'll
you?
try to track that down. Thank you.
All right. June Sheldon.
Yes, this is June Sheldon, and I have been a college professor in biology, genetics, microbiology, chemistry for many years. And I wanted to support Joan because I'm worried about I'm sorry.
Or Anne. Yeah.
Is it Anne?
Yes.
I'm worried about the wildlife corridor being ecologically changed. Basically, the two species that are especially affected by 5G frequencies are insects and birds. Some of these of which are pollinators, and pollinators are essential for crops to reproduce, for vegetation to reproduce, and I am worried that the tendency for to increase 5G cell phone towers, 70% of which are 5G because they're cheaper to run, could irreversibly damage our ecosystems. We own a home in Elmira, and Elmira is a wildlife corridor from Montana to Idaho to Canada and back. And human studies have shown that the young are 3 to 5 times more affected by 5G radiation than adults. And that's a problem because for instance, when bears sleep can be affected, and they need to hibernate. And so just to reiterate my concern, and I can provide the committee with websites and references. One of the references that I have is basically about bees, and it's published in the International Journal of Radiation Biology. And there was a recent study in 2025 that showed that 5G honeybees they greatly absorb radiation to their brains. Now, honeybees are very kind of, for insects, very intelligent because they fly back to the hives and they do this little dance in front of all the other worker bees, and they show them not only the distance of where the pollen is, but the direction, the exact direction. And if their brains are affected negatively, we're talking about pollination and whole ecosystems. So that's basically what I wanted to say. Also, the bird population, like hummingbirds pollinate. There was a Punjab University study that found that sparrows exposed to cell tower radiation, 5G cell tower radiation, for only 5 to 30 minutes produced disfigured eggs. This occurred in the United States years ago with the eagle population, and the United States stopped DDT from use because the eggs of birds were being affected. So I think we really need to examine the ecological effects of this, of having a 5G network that's about 3 miles away from our home, but more than that, how it affects wildlife.
Thank you, June.
Could we ask her to send that to the Board of Commissioners?
Yeah.
Information.
Do you want to ask, or do you want me to ask? June, can you email the information that you just stated to the Board of Commissioners?
Yes, I can. I can update as well, because I was given about an hour to look at this information, but I'd be happy if my background in previous studies have confirmed what I found this morning.
Okay.
All
Be
right,
happy to email that to you.
thank you. Chuck and June. Oh, that's,
Yeah.
I think you're a pair.
Pardon me?
Does Chuck want to speak too?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Chuck Sheldon, I heartily concur with Ann's recommendation to adopt our own telecommunications ordinance to protect us from the threatened impacts of HB 180, which I will touch on momentarily. My motivation is to protect myself, my family, and visitors to my home, where I am personally facing the threat of a new 5G cell tower 3 miles from my home in District 1. HB 180. HB 180 stampedes counties into hasty decisions that require expertise in 2 fields, expertise that is absent from most county governments. 1, RF technology, and 2, medical safety studies of RF signals. This is like telling a 4-year-old he or she has 4 minutes to learn to ride a bike. Either ride now or you'll never get a bike. It does not provide enough time for counties to investigate such complex technical and medical issues. For that reason, this county needs a telecommunications ordinance to enable us to protect ourselves when making decisions that depend upon exceptionally specialized expertise. 5G risk. The FCC is responsible for protecting us from telecommunications technology, but the FCC webpage cites no medical studies, none, since 2011, when 4G wireless was first introduced, and 8 years before 5G was deployed. Countless studies have shown serious medical risks and have not been disproved. RFK and Children's Health Defense are currently litigating a suit against the FCC on the risks of 5G. About 5 years ago, as someone else alluded to, a federal court ordered the FCC to update safety studies of wireless technology. They still have not done so. Hank Allen is an Idahoan who has suffered hundreds of thousands of dollars of health impact due to AFib that he attributes to wireless technology. Hundreds of other people in Idaho are suffering related health impacts. Now back to the ordinance. 4 parties want counties to rush into decisions on wireless tech. 1, the state of Idaho, where HB 180 gives the county 0 time to think. 2, the wireless industry, which naturally wants 5G adopted everywhere now. 3, the companies that want Banner County to approve specific applications. And 4, county residents who want faster wireless now and see no harm in it. Together, these 4 parties maximize the pressure on this county to adopt every application shoved at it quickly. But no county has the expertise, or few counties I outlined earlier, to determine whether it's safe. Many will demand that we rush these decisions, but rushing major decisions is like playing Russian roulette. You see the connection? Rushing decisions on wireless technology is like putting a gun to our heads. The proposed ordinance solves the main issue, which is to provide guardrails to guide the county in making such decisions under pressure. My thanks to Ann for her brilliant recommendation that we adopt our own telecommunications ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to interrupt public comment to do one thing to show you guys how to access this, and maybe this is something that we as a community don't know about. So this is called Idaho in Session. So this, when you're looking at meetings that the state is doing, it's on this channel. So we'll put this up so you can see. But for example, you can see the Idaho Broadband Advisory Board meeting on the 14th, and then you click on that and you can watch it. So this is where you'll find that meeting tomorrow. If you're in this room and you asked me for it, I emailed you the information so you have it. But this is what you're looking for, is Idaho PBS, and then you're clicking on Idaho in Session. I'll leave that up there for a second and then go to, some people aren't putting their hands down. Wendy's hand is still up. Do you want to talk, Wendy? All right, I'm going to stop sharing. It's just Idaho. Oh, no, we can't see it. Gotta love Zoom. Just Idaho, there you see it, right there. Okay. All right, Wendy doesn't want to speak. So we'll go to Brandon Kramer.
Good morning, Brandon Kramer. I'm a Bonner County resident. I would just like to ask or make a statement and then make a question. The statement is that the a calendar with all of the meeting minutes and agendas and things like that has, I think, been a helpful tool now that everything is being consolidated there. My question is why the elected officials and department heads meeting is the only one with no Zoom link, no meeting minutes, whereas everything else has those with the exception of executive sessions.
We can look at that if they're not attaching the information to that particular meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joan? Or Joan? Yeah, Joan?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'd like to address the issues that Ann has brought to us today. The current Bonner County Code uses vague language such as convenience and necessity, but does not operationalize these terms. Such lack of specificity produces confusion and lends itself to appeal processes and litigation, as we're currently experiencing in the Elmira case. As we learned in the Elmira case, cell tower applications require a level of quantitative analysis, sophisticated argument, and financial resources for data acquisition that exceed what can reasonably be expected of ordinary citizens who simply wish to defend their property rights from encroachment. Furthermore, cell tower applicants demonstrate an inherent conflict of interest in the provision of objective data or absence of data when promoting their applications. A carefully crafted ordinance will delineate clear quantitative thresholds, objective criteria that must be met in order for a cell tower application to be approved. The commissioners need to hire a reputable cell tower legal expert to draft the updated wireless ordinance, and promptly. Bonner County does not have the in-house legal expertise to draft this ordinance itself. Such an expert must know the relevant telecommunications case law deeply and be intimately familiar with the technical specifications and quantitative standards for the wireless industry. It's not sufficient to adopt other municipalities' ordinances, especially those from other states. Model ordinances from within the state of Idaho should be carefully reviewed and in consultation with a reputable cell tower attorney. They may be modified for Bonner County specifically. We're a rural county, not an urban or suburban county, and our needs and desires for preserving our rural character are unique. The length of a model document is less important than the substance of that document. I was going through Dalton Gardens last night and I was truly blown away by that ordinance. Here's a few high points. It articulates the principled rationale behind each aspect of the ordinance. This lends itself to reasoned decision-making that can be easily documented. There are 9 pages of defined terminology. That's absolutely necessary. The drive test evidentiary requirements are laid out. There must be raw data, dropped call logs, all frequencies tested, sub-threshold data to support claims for threshold needs using DBMs. It discourages the use of propagation maps in the absence of drive test data. The use of consultants I thought was particularly creative. The applicant and landowner hosting the tower pay for the county's use of necessary consultants. And believe me, you will need to hire radio frequency engineers occasionally. It anticipates effective prohibition claims by the applicant and employs an evidentiary threshold for the same. It requires a visual impact analysis with specifications. And that's just the first half of the document. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no, Brandon, I believe, are you asking for a second question? All right, you have a comment? There you go, sir.
Rich Mendive, Bonner County resident for a long time. This is regarding Priest River Airport. Back in the early 90s, when you wanted to build a hangar at the Priest River Airport, we had two options on our lease. You could either own the building outright and just do a ground lease, and you would then be required to pay the ground lease and property taxes on the building. So that was your option one. Option two was the county would own the building at the end of a 30-year contract, and you no longer had to pay, you didn't pay personal property tax on it. So you only just paid the ground lease. Those were the two options. The three private hangars that were built back in the 90s on this 30-year contract were all built under the assumption you owned the property and you paid the personal property tax on it. I'm just making that known now for you. Tim and Sue Ben Dixon, the contracts were a 20-year contract with a 10-year option at the end of the contract. That gave us 30 years. Those contracts have come to expire. My contract, it took me over a year to get a contract from the county to renew my contract at the end in 2023. We started early in 22 to try and get a contract. The contract was delayed coming to us, even though we got a contract submitted to us for the same as the third building that was built. There's three private hangars at that time. The third hangar, hangar number 13, was purchased by an attorney out of California. This was during the 10-year extension period. He received a new contract, which gave him a 50-year term on that contract. We just requested his contract, and we submitted that contract to him back in August of 22. It took us till August of 24 to get that contract back. It was delayed and delayed and delayed. Likewise, we ended up with a contract that had been modified. Never a mention of modifying the contract, changing it from a 20-year contract to another 10-year contract. That was wrong, in my opinion, that happened. I ended up signing it, and we also lost the ownership of the building. The county will own it at the end of 30 years, meaning we have nothing to sell. Tim and Sue Ben Dixon had that same contract. They did not get a renewal. The county had changed when payments needed to be made to the county for the ground lease. They wanted to get it to a consistent format, so it happened to be in October when those payments would be made. Their contract expired a month and a half before October. Their time lapsed. They didn't realize it, and their contract expired last year. When that contract expired, she realized it, but she was 45 days into the 90-day grace period at the end of the contract. The county, whatever reason, never sent them a contract in 2024, never sent any notification. The first notification they got, they requested contracts, they contacted Asia to get Dave Shuck to respond, so on and so forth. Lots of mistakes made. They know they made a mistake. The county took possession of the building. The first paperwork they got mailed to them from the county was 2 days before the 90-day extension, or the 90-day grace period at the end of a contract. So the county took possession of their building. Now, a lot of things happened in between. Bottom line was then the county offered them a 20-year lease rent agreement at the end of all that. The 20-year lease rent agreement gave them, they could sign a lease for 20 years. The first year's lease rent would be $6,000 payable upfront, because you always paid upfront for your lease. The second year's lease agreement was $8,400 for the year, which they would have to pay in advance. And the third year lease agreement, just because they signed it, was going to be $9,600. The remaining 17 years aren't mentioned, and there is nothing tied to how the rent would be raised. This is not a contract somebody could sign. They were going to have to come up with $24,000 in less than 24 months just to have the building for another 3 years. This was not right. The community doesn't know about this, and this all happened last fall. So I'm really trying to hope that you guys will take attention and look at this and correct this, because right now it costs the county nothing to do this. Otherwise, this is going to litigation. That always just costs us taxpayers money. And right now, you guys can correct it. They signed a lease agreement for 1 year for the $6,000 and they paid. To add insult to injury, after signing that lease agreement, they got sent the property taxes due on the hangar. She called up the county and they said, no, you still owe that. Hell, she paid it. I'm wondering where this should go. They really should be back to a ground lease. It would be the only closed hangar that the county owns in Priest River.
So I've heard your issue, and I think that the Ben-Dixons have a fantastic friend who comes to argue. But some of what you said is not accurate, because I've been part of this communication. And because the Ben-Dixons have indicated that the comment of lawsuit, that's not something that the board is going to address with them.
Well, I was trying to prevent the thing of lawsuit. They wanted to come up here and be put on the agenda. They requested that from you. You would not do that.
So you don't have all the information, and I can tell you all of my communications with the Ben-Dixons are in email with confirmation of the back and forth.
I have read.
And so if they choose the path of litigation, that's what they choose. But the board, because that's what the comment has been made by the Ben-Dixons, we can't respond, sir.
But there's not litigation yet. This can all be
But you are
stopped.
not the Ben-Dixons.
No, I know that, but there is no litigation yet. I can help mediate. There is no lawsuit pending yet.
So your comment has been heard about their issue. They are in charge of responding to what option the county gave them. Some of what you're saying is not an accurate representation. And one of the things I am going to say here is, even with this issue, when we had an airport quarterly review on how the process is of leases, how that happens. We very clearly explained to the community as a whole how leases are formed. And so I can promise you that if they want to work with Dave Shuck, they can reach out in response to our last correspondence. But some of what you're saying is not an accurate representation of what has happened. And you're not the Ben-Dixons. And so I appreciate that you want the community to know that they have an issue. But because of their comment about litigation, there isn't something that
I asked them not to show up today. I
Okay.
asked them not to show up, so we could actually have a frank conversation. Because if the threat of litigation happens, it's all done. Everybody goes home.
They've already done that. And so there's nothing for the board to comment on in their situation.
Well, there was a lot of things said, and there are a lot of things, there is a potential for a lawsuit here. There's those people, Dave Shuck.
I'm being graceful with
I
the
get
amount
it.
that you've gone over, but we've heard your issue and they're,
Well, right now, you guys can stop this for no cost.
Okay.
That's what I want the people to know.
thank you, sir.
John Dupree, county resident, point 2. Joan blew me away by her comments. I don't know if she's an attorney, but if she is, she might be the one we ought to consider. And Asia, it would be really wonderful if you could take Chuck and June and Joan to that meeting that you're having with.
They are part of that group.
They are.
They're part of the Wired Idaho, and so Ann coordinates that. So it will be, we already did a conversation with them before, so we'll pull all of them back together for an update.
Praise the Lord, that is great. Paul Revere is riding out of this county to have an impact on all of America and the world. Thank you for what you're doing.
All right, any further public comments?
Hi, Linda Whitmer, Bonner County resident. I appreciate the attention that you're giving to the cell phone issue or the cell tower issue. And I do just think it is wise when it is questionable for the safety of the people to err on the side of caution, because it's very difficult to unravel things. So I really do appreciate the due diligence and all the work that everyone, the community and everyone's doing. Thank you.
And I sent you both those links to the PBS as well.